Good morning, beloved. Welcome to Women Called by God TV. This is Friday, November 7th, 2025. Morning Devotion, Whispers in the Quiet. Learning to hear God's voice in the stillness. Scripture, reading 1 Kings 19:12. After the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face and went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. 1 Kings 19:11-13. My sheep listen to my voice. I know them and they follow me. John 10:27. Reflection. Elijah expected God to show up in the dramatic, the powerful wind, the earthquake, the fire, but God came in a whisper, a gentle, quiet voice that required Elijah to stop, listen, and lean in. We often make the same mistake. We're waiting for God to speak through circumstances so obvious we can't miss them. A billboard with our name on it, an unmistakable sign, a booming voice from heaven. Meanwhile, God is whispering and we're too distracted to hear. Why does God whisper? Not because he's weak or distant, but because whispers require something dramatic. Displays don't. They require us to draw close. You can hear thunder from miles away, but you can only hear a whisper when you're near, when you're still, when you're paying attention. God whispers because he's inviting intimacy, not just information. He wants relationship, not just to give you directions. Where does God whisper? In the quiet moments you usually fill with noise. The morning before you grab your phone, the drive you usually fill with podcasts, the pause between activities you normally rush through, the stillness before sleep that you often drown out with screens. God is speaking in those spaces. But his voice is gentle, not forceful, patient, not demanding. He won't shout over the noise. He waits for you to turn down the volume. What does God's whisper sound like? It's not always an audible voice. More often, it's a persistent thought that won't leave you alone, a peace about a decision you've been wrestling with, a conviction that redirects your behavior, a scripture that suddenly speaks directly to your situation, a sense of his presence when you're overwhelmed, an inexplicable knowing about which way to go. God's whisper often comes through his word. When you read scripture and a verse seems to leap off the page, speaking directly to your circumstances, that's his voice. When you're praying and suddenly have clarity about a confusing situation, that's his whisper. When you sense him prompting you to reach out to someone, to forgive, to wait, to move, that's him speaking. How do we hear better? First, create quiet. You can't hear a whisper in a stadium full of noise. Turn off the TV, put down your phone, stop filling every moment with sound. Create space for God's voice to break through. Second, expect him to speak. We often don't hear because we're not listening. We treat prayer like a monologue. We talk at God, then move on. But prayer is meant to be conversation. After you speak, wait, listen, expect him to respond. Third, know his character. God's voice will never contradict his word. His whispers align with scripture, reflect his love, and lead you toward growth, not away from him. If you're unsure whether something is God's voice or your own thoughts, test it against what you know about his character from the Bible. Fourth, practice. Hearing God's voice is a skill that develops over time. The more you create quiet moments to listen, the more attuned you become to his whispers. It's like learning to recognize a friend's voice in a crowd. The more time you spend with them, the easier it becomes. The invitation, God is whispering to you right now. in this very moment. He has things to say about your situation, your struggles, your decisions, your purpose. But you'll only hear him if you stop and listen. What if, instead of waiting for God to shout through obvious circumstances, you started paying attention to his whispers in the quiet? What if you discovered that he's been speaking all along and you just needed to turn down the noise? He's not hiding from you. He's inviting you closer. The question isn't whether God is speaking. The question is, are you listening? Prayer, Lord, forgive me for the times I've filled my life with so much noise that I couldn't hear your voice. Teach me to recognize your whisper in scripture, in prayer, in the quiet moments I usually rush through. Help me create space in my day to listen, really listen for what you want to say. If this message spoke peace to your heart today, take a quiet moment to thank him and share this devotional with someone who needs comfort and encouragement. May the Lord continue to strengthen you and remind you that you are a woman called by God. Subscribe for daily devotionals and stories of faith, courage, and calling. This is Women Called by God TV.